Good afternoon, class. I'm here to talk to you about a reflection as an individual intervention. I have labeled this the self-assessment process that mirrors success. It is my hope that you will potentially reflect on this PowerPoint presentation later as you work through your own personal goals. The first thing I'll cover is just touch on how this came about. Donald A. Schoen, he was considered the father of reflection. He did write a book in 1983 called The Reflective Practitioner, How Professionals Think in Action. Of course, as the word professional, and I do use air quotes, came about, we had to start to figure out as a society more solutions to various problems. Professionals are granted certain rights and privileges, but of course with that came the unfortunate misuse of those rights and privileges for private gain. So there was a lot of focus on training professionals on how people in general, regardless of what the profession was specifically, how they should act, how they should proceed, have a successful business, and have a successful leadership along with a successful team. So as the industries of teachers, scientists, engineers grew, there was a big focus and shift into the knowledge industry and how to make those professionals successful within each of those. So what is reflection as an organization development concept? I don't know about you guys, but taking space away or taking time away from distractions and having your own space can be difficult. It can be challenging. I myself find that incredibly challenging, having a 14-year-old son, 4 animals, a husband, and working full time. So reflection was a concept, or is a concept, that is somewhat foreign only because I don't tend to stop. You all may be able to relate to that, and certainly as we all go through this class and do the master's program through OWLS, it can certainly, reflection can certainly be challenging on a daily basis. Of course, reflection is also largely intuitive, does not have to be verbalized. It does reinforce a culture of learning rather than one of blaming, which I can appreciate. Especially working for the state. I work for University of Texas. There tends to be sometimes some levels of blaming that I don't necessarily agree with, but for the most part, UT does reinforce that culture of learning. Being an institution of higher education, I would hope that would be the case. And so, but as you get into the more micro departments, sometimes there can be that of blaming. It just depends, obviously, of who you interact with and what your job entails. Of course, reflection does not have to be explicit and doesn't even have to be verbalized. I think the first thing I thought of when I thought of reflection, just in general, was sitting, being with your thoughts, peacefulness, looking at the night sky, kind of just appreciating and reflecting on life to see how, of course, improvement can happen. Reflection as action. So as we apply this to our work life, I'm going to focus on 2 different perspectives. So reflection as action, there's reflection on action and in action. Of course, on action, it involves the conscious effort to consider how processes can be developed after the event. So after a meeting, you're retrospective, you're journaling, maybe even meditating. I know that some businesses and certain cultures will reinforce the experience of meditation to see how things can be improved upon. Reflection in action does focus on how processes can be developed as it currently happening. So it tends to be a surprise. There's something happening, and I kind of point out, it made me think of rerouting, as if I'm taking a different course. Suddenly, maybe a traffic jam, something just impeding my ability to go as planned, then you have to be action present and you have to react at that moment. And hopefully you will have a better outcome, or even just as good an outcome as you would if it was an on-action reflection. Of course, there's many strengths and weaknesses, not all of which I will touch on, but Basically, in action, you need to respond quickly, you need to be on your toes. But you could react negatively or make assumptions of others' intentions, or wrong assumptions, which I think all of us have probably experienced. Inaction strengths. I mean, certainly you'll resolve the issue, or you have more of a potential to resolve the issue immediately. Provides an opportunity for open dialogue, and certainly as you interact with each other, it can occur on a more regular basis. On action weaknesses, of course, there's no immediate change. But you will get feedback from several team members, putting something in place that doesn't work sometimes, and can be time consuming. However, it will always leave room for change and implementation. So the examples that I found the most interesting were, as far as inaction, a student misbehaving in class. I don't know how much experience you guys have had. I was a substitute teacher at one point, so that was huge experience for me as far as students misbehaving, because obviously people don't like the sub, and that's fine. So having to react quickly, having to make quick decisions that of course will be in the benefit of both the student and the teacher. The on action, of course, taking a lesson as an instructor, you look back at the material, make the appropriate changes or any changes that you feel need to happen through the course content, and continue to evolve and build on that. I hope you all have enjoyed this, and maybe we'll reflect on it later. I personally have enjoyed reading about the various aspects. There's much more to learn about reflection, and certainly much more to learn about life, but it isn't foundational to evolving in both in one's work and personal life. Thank you.